Hello everybody and welcome to the 110th edition of the Chronicles of Podcast. And these right here are the Chronicles of MC Lars and Schaffer The Darklord. It is I, the bearded brummy Jamie, and joining me as always, this handsome fella right here.
This is Scotsman Tom. It picked up these. It was beautiful. And welcome to the Chronicles of Podcast. Hit it!
Hi there. You're about to enjoy the Chronicles of Tom and Jamie.
Hi everyone, I'm Kevin Mann.
Hi guys, my name's Annabelle Knight.
Hello, this is Becky Baldwin.
Hello, I'm Chesney.
Hey, what's up everyone? This is Braden from Say We Can Fly.
I absolutely loved her second name's Abel, first name Tink. Just really fucking made me laugh.
Boys and girls, step into the eerie world of the Mouse's House as we bring you the Chronicles of Schaffer The Darklord and MC Lars.
Hatbox go.
This week we are joined by MC Lars and Schaffer The Darklord. These kings of nerdcore rap have been collaborating on individual tracks since like 2008, but now Schaffer and Lars have decided to release an album together with a dark twist. 999 is an upcoming concept album. They've sort of gone delving into the dark side of Disney of all things, giving us tracks inspired by things like the Haunted Mansion, the Black Cauldron, the Sorcerer's Apprentice, the Nightmare Before Christmas, and so much more. This is absolutely phenomenal, and this album concept is also phenomenal.
No, absolutely, and it's definitely something different to what we normally do.
Yes.
So it's not your average Chronicles interview. Well, it still is. It still is but it's not a way back and build up. It's literally all about this new album that they're bringing out fairly shortly. So yeah, it's amazing. From what we've heard so far, it's great, and I implore you to go and listen to No Windows, No Doors, as that's the single they've released so far. That's on Spotify, available on Spotify, wherever you get your music from. It's absolutely amazing. So I highly recommend. And this conversation is spectacular.
Absolutely is. Like Tom was just saying there, the guys were lovely enough to send us 5 tracks just to check out what the album's going to sound like. And superb. It is so good. I've been a fan of MC Lars for quite some time, so I was so happy to finally get him on the show. And I need to go listen to more Schaffer and the Darklord now more. And this is amazing. Thank you so much, gents, for joining us. You're going to love this one, guys.
Absolutely. Well, I would say, Jamie, do you have any final words? But I don't think I need to, as you've already expressed said final words. So, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, interviewing this week, it's MC Lars and Schaffer The Darklord.
Ladies and gentlemen, today we bring you 2 very special guests who have come together to release a new EP called 999, a nerd rap record all about the dark side of Disney. Boys and girls, step into the eerie world of the Mouse's House as we bring you the Chronicles of Schaffer The Darklord and MC Lars.
Thank you. That was an excellent introduction. I loved it.
Thank you.
I'm going to get a little serious very, very quickly, and then we can get into the fun shit. I just want to know how the past couple of years have been for you guys with the pandemic and everything, obviously with the world being shut down and music not being a thing. So how was that for you guys?
It was rough at first, but I feel like we kind of benefited from teaming up and being on the kind of vanguard of remote entertainment. Everybody started doing everybody had started their Twitch accounts, and everybody started doing live streaming concerts, and we teamed up and with our friends Frontalot and Megaran, and we did some pretty ambitious live streaming shows on a monthly basis. And I feel like we kind of, it was rough not being in front of human beings for a couple of years, but I feel like we definitely made a whole lot of lemonade out of those lemons, and I feel like I wouldn't have been quite as successful as getting it through it on my own if I hadn't had this crew of friends doing it together. And I feel like we did all right.
Yeah, I mean, it's fortunate to have such loyal fans. You know, we were never cool, so we were never uncool. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, so that's cool. Like people keep supporting us, and we kind of stayed at this level. And like, I feel like a lot of artists who were getting started before COVID, and kind of threw a wrench in their plans, and it was hard to keep the momentum. But if we just kind of kept doing our thing, and you know, once we got back on tour, it was so cool because people were ready to see us. And yeah, it's hard to believe that it's been 2 years ago. We did our tour, like our victory tour, when we thought everything was back to normal. And it was a great tour, but we were masked up and terrified the whole time.
Oh, no way.
But it's weird how the music is like. We interviewed a band the other day and they released their first single, and then about 2 days later they were like, lockdown. I'm like, son of a bitch, like we can't even go promote this thing. We just released it.
Well, I think Lars and I were also really lucky in that regard, because we had done a tour in February of 2020 and we got home a week or two before everything locked down. So we just made it. I know people that were on the road that had to cancel shows and go home, and we just got home, and it just like, I hadn't even fully unpacked before it was like, hey, you have to shelter in place, before we all learned that phrase. And that was also kind of great because it was on that trip. The last thing we did as our victory lap on that tour before we flew back home was some fans took us to Disney World in Orlando. And Lars had been many times as a kid. I'd never, ever been in my life. And so we went on a bunch of rides, including the Haunted Mansion. And I feel like that last moment in the real world before COVID hit is planted the seed for this record that we made all these years later.
That was amazing. But before we get into the new EP, just take us back a little bit, because this isn't the first time you guys have worked together. You've been doing collaboration since like 2008. Is that correct?
Yeah, at least 2008. Yeah.
Yeah, good job, Jamie. Good research. That's pretty tight.
Yes.
we met because I'd heard Schaffer on the internet, and he opened for Frontalot and me at a show in Boston. Even though he was living in New York, he came to Boston. For some reason, we thought he lived there. So he came up on the bus and helped us load in, and he was real cool. And we just became friends. But Schaffer, how did you get involved in nerdcore? Because it's not something you set up to be part of, right?
No, I had been touring independently, very modestly, as an independent rapper for a couple of years, but before I'd heard the word nerdcore, and I was doing, like, all of my stuff was about Satan and heavy metal bands, and it's because I had been a drummer in metal bands before, and so I was just kind of using all of this imagery of skeletons and, you know, gargoyles and stuff, but I was using it in rap songs. And at some point, this message board in the early days of nerdcore, just they found me and invited me to come play some festival in Orlando. They basically just said, like, you're one of us now. You, which I always just assumed it's because I look like this. They were like, all right, yeah, you're one of us now. So that's how I got. I mean, Lars, you were also doing stuff before you heard this phrase.
Yeah, and you know, England was where I got my start because I was studying there, and then thankfully, like Bowling for Soup and Simple Plan, all these bands brought me to open for them because it was such a weird novelty to be rapping with a laptop in 2004, and so, but then the nerdcore thing was just kind of a press thing that came about because this guy MC Frontalot kind of popularized the term, and we all kind of became friends because, like, Pandora and early Web 2 social media all linked our fan bases together, and we weren't, it was just kind of happened. And so here we are. So that's how Schaffer and I worked with Schaffer a lot because he's one of the least dysfunctional of the people in the group. Just kidding. They're all wonderful. But Schaffer's very easy to work with, which I love. They're all wonderful.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Lars.
So correct me if I'm wrong, I know you're saying this, you've been working together since like 2000, but is this the first like full EP record you guys have done together? We've done a whole project together.
Yeah, I guess of new stuff, right?
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah. We on our 2020 tour, we pressed a few. We remastered an album of just like all of our collaborations over the years, but this is the first time doing a full album together. And also, it's not an EP; that's a full length.
I never know what's the difference between an EP and like what is the barrier? Like what number of songs is it? I never know.
That's a hell of a question, and nobody knows the answer.
No,
I think at least 10 makes. I think 10 makes it a full length. You think 8 makes it a full length, Lars?
Well, Spotify, if you do 8, they call it an album. If you do 7, it's a single or EP.
Oh,
Just
okay.
defaults.
Oh.
Well, we get to make up our own rules. We've given enough to Spotify.
How about it's a double EP? How's that?
Like it. I like that. I was going to say, I don't think Spotify has any right to give musicians rules these days. So.
No.
Yeah, seriously.
But whose idea was it then to get together and be like, let's do like a full project together?
That was Lars's idea.
Yeah, because like that's a really interesting question, Jamie, because I wanted to do an album about Disney's Haunted Mansion. And I was like, I can't pull this off on my own. This is ridiculous. This is too much. So I was like, maybe Schaffer. I remember I was in LA and I called you. I was like, what if we did this record about the Haunted Mansion? And Schaffer was like, okay, if you can find enough lore, we can try to do it. Then I was talking to our friend Megaran about this. I don't know if I told you this, Mark. It was at the show. I forget he was playing in Brooklyn, and I was like, we're working on this Haunted Mansion record. And Raheem was like, you shouldn't just do Haunted Mansion. You should do all dark themes in Disney. He said people will like that more and it will be a lot easier. And so I was like, okay. So that's what happened. So it was kind of step after step. He was opening for Slum Village. That was it. And we were just talking about it. And yeah. And then we just started writing. We made like a spreadsheet with all our ideas. And at one point we were like, wait, can we do Star Wars? Can we do Muppets? Like what Disney stuff is that? We had to figure out what of the Disney property we could focus on. We kind of decided to focus just basically on mainly the animation, I guess, Schaffer, but there's some other stuff too, like Mr. Boogedy.
Yeah. There's definitely some weird stuff, but I feel like we kind of kept it pretty classic. We have a song on it that called Rated G for Trauma that lists I'd asked a number of people to just tell me like, what's the most traumatic thing you remember in a Disney movie as a kid? And so I gathered up a bunch of those because most of my reference points of that were very old. And I had like seen a lot of like newer Disney movies as an adult, but they didn't traumatize me. And so we gathered up a bunch of those. And so I felt like that we got to list we get to reference a ton of Disney properties. And then with the rest of the songs, we get to kind of like really focus on specific things. And a lot of those, we steered clear of things like Marvel and Star Wars, even though they're owned by Disney now. But I feel like a lot of our songs are based on like classics. And in some cases, in most cases, classic animation. But then sometimes it takes a weird detour and we have like a song about Mr. Boogedy, which was this made for TV horror short. It's like 80 minutes long. I don't know. That was made in like the 80s. That's got the dad from License to Drive in it. I don't know. It's weird. But yeah, we wrote a song about that. It's on Disney Plus, so hopefully then that means that people can go and watch it and get the reference because I hadn't seen it before.
That was a suggestion of our producer. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say it's going to be the weirdest market research ever. Tell me what terrified you about Disney as a child.
Yeah. I talked to so many people and I'm glad I did because if I'd been left to my own devices, we would have run out of material. But because there are so many movies that I saw that I didn't realize had traumatized kids. Like I didn't realize how upset millennials were when the bad guy in The Princess and the Frog steps on the firefly. I didn't realize that was as traumatizing as it was. And then once somebody would give me that nugget, I'd go, to Reddit and watch people process their childhoods over certain terrifying scenes in Disney movies and was like, oh yeah, that was pretty bad for kids. So yeah, put it in the song.
So say with how broad Disney is, like it must have been so difficult to narrow it down and go, what should we focus on? Because obviously they own the world now, I think, don't they? Near enough.
I mean, it was interesting because it's like Schaffer and I guess Schaffer, you're like younger Gen X. I'm like older millennial, right? We're kind of but we have the same references of like 80s and 90s Disney pop culture. So a lot of it focuses on that. Like there's Roger Rabbit. There's a Figment and Dreamfinder, which were like the Epcot mascots from back in the day. We were like, what do we specifically remember? So a lot of it is nostalgia based. Like that's kind of our era, I guess. I'm trying to think like Nightmare Before Christmas is probably the newest thing we wrote about, but it's like first generation Disney to then, and then basically the animation. And then like who like kind of the lesser known villains or darker characters, like more evil characters, like the Weasels from Roger Rabbit have a cipher. The Nightmare Before Christmas, Schaffer had this really cool idea to tell a story from the mayor, who's like the two-faced politician, which is like, which I really think turned out great. I love that song. So stuff like that.
Yeah. We play he's more of the public facing politician side, and then we hear like this gear turn several times throughout the song, and then I'm like what the mayor says to his actual staff of aides behind closed doors, and so we kind of played to type because he's like, oh, he was very much out there shaking hands and kissing babies, and I'm very much doing terrible things backstage.
Oh, I like that. I love the Nightmare Before Christmas, and that I cannot. Oh, I can't wait to hear that. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's a fun track.
Were there any projects that you wanted to make a song about, but you just couldn't make work? You couldn't think of like a way to put it together?
I did. I had one. I really wanted to. I wanted to do a song about the black hole, which was the live action science fiction movie that Disney made as a response to all the Star Wars fandom in the late 70s, early 80s. Because it's weird. It's so weird. And like most old Disney's, it's got just a absolutely convoluted narrative that doesn't really make sense, but then it takes a crazy turn and gets really kind of dark and brutal in the last act. But I just couldn't make it work. I tried and tried and tried to come up with something for it, and I just couldn't do it.
I just imagine.
And oh yeah. Sorry. Oh wait, what were you gonna say, Jamie?
No, carry on, sir. Carry on.
Oh, I was gonna say there were two things I wanted to write about, but they fell too outside of the like Disney IP brand that wasn't Disney enough. Like I wanted to do a song about the original Star Tours ride where Paul Rubens, rest in peace, is the voice of the robot. It goes on this crazy, like it's just chaos. And I wanted to write a song from the lawyer's perspective, trying to defend all the legal repercussions of like this ship that went crazy, which was inspired by Schaffer. Has this really great song with Frenelot where they're Tom and Jerry's lawyers in court. So like that inspired me. I wanted to do something like that, but we're like, we can't do Star Wars. Maybe we'll do a Star Wars album one day and do that. The other one I want to do was the Muppets Christmas Carol or the Disney Christmas Carol, the story of losing Tiny Tim. It's just like what it's like to lose a child, the darkness of losing a child and having Christmas with the empty chair. And as a father, you know, I have a 3-year-old now. It's like how sad that would be, but that was too heavy. I couldn't write that song. It was too dark. You know, like Tiny Tim. Yeah, the story of like Tiny Tim's empty chair. So sad. Anyway,
there's a man sat right there whose name is Schaffer the Darklord. Even he's like, no, that's too fucking dark for me.
Yeah,
like, no.
I don't want to talk about child death on a rap record. We're trying to have some fun here. We'll keep it all. We'll keep it all to like childhood trauma and drug addiction and losing a lifelong friend. There's still some pretty dark themes on the album, but yeah, that one would have been a pretty gnarly.
Just wondering though, when you're writing about projects, because obviously you don't own any of these projects, it's Disney, you know, and especially when it comes to the mouse, were there any certain things you have to avoid, things you can't say or anything like that you've got to be careful of when you're writing songs like this?
We had a guest, I won't name him, he was like a popular Gen 1 YouTuber who's a musician, and we invited him to do a vocal, but he does a lot of vocal work for Disney. So he's like, yeah, I can't be on this album because you guys are kind of like just kind of disparaging this intellectual property. I see it as like fandom tribute art, but like having said that, our Haunted Mansion song was demonetized because there's too much content from the movie on YouTube. So I don't know. I don't think they'd come after us. It would be a bad look, but it would be a good press angle if they did. But yeah, I don't know.
I don't know if there's anything that we couldn't say. I think it's physical IP. It's sounds and images, and we didn't sample any Disney movies. We didn't lift any Disney music. We're not using any stills or artwork from Disney for the promotional materials. Well, maybe.
No, we're not copying anything. We had like artists do fandom.
Yeah. There's no, we're not using any like Disney images like on our album cover or anything. So I think in that case we can get away with it. I think we can kind of say whatever we want. But again, I think they'd be pretty silly to go after small potatoes like us with their giant empire of money.
I mean, people would check for the record if that happened, right? People, it's like when Danger Mouse did the Beatles Jay-Z thing.
Yeah.
But that's a good question because, like, historically, Disney's been like very supportive of fan art, right? Because there's but that's a good question. Famous last words, right? Oh, we're fine.
And that was hard. It was hard too, because like in a lot of these songs, I specifically, because we were working remotely, all summer I was watching so much Disney Plus and digging deep and watching so many old films and watching them over and over, and like just sketching out like story beats that I would want to use in these songs. It's really hard. You get to that point where like that music from so much of that music is so iconic and it's so connected to this story that you're trying to retell. It was really hard to like not want to sample that music or create music that sounded like something that was reminiscent of it. I feel like we did a pretty good job of staying away from that, but god damn it, that was hard.
I could imagine, you hear something like, oh, that would sound great in the song. Something, oh, bollocks, I don't own it. Fucking mouse.
It was I did a lot of like, yes, punching things and saying fucking mouse.
I mean, lyrically, how do you even structure your songs? Because obviously it's all original. It's like you've only taken bits and pieces, obviously, from what you've seen, and then turn it into your own. So, like, how would you actually structure your songs? Because I think from Tink of the Fae, I absolutely loved her second name's Abel, first name Tink, just really fucking made me laugh.
Thank you.
But like, how do you actually structure your songs? Like, is it like we'll do a chorus and build outwards, or is it just like slapdash whatever comes to mind?
It's kind of different, like song by song. There's always a different. I feel like all of these songs specifically had a very different approach to them in how we would write them. We would do a lot of kind of like, one of us would kind of maybe lay out the song and then send that like outline to the other one and say like, I'm thinking we do this here and here and here. And I think it was tricky because we were trying to write narrative songs that weren't like, we didn't want to write a bunch of songs. It was just like, here's a bunch of list of details. Here's a song about a movie you like. Well, here are all the names of all the characters and all the places. That just felt kind of lazy and a little wiki rappy for us. So we tried to write stories like within these universes. So that made it kind of trickier to like, whoever was kind of, it would take the helm of the ship for each song might like kind of sketch out an outline of a song and send it to the other one and then get ideas from them. We tried to never just, none of these songs that are about these particular properties are ever just the story of that movie. We zoom in on some small detail and like focus on that element of the story to tell a different story.
Like the idea of like the Black Cauldron song, which is this famous Disney movie that like lost them a lot of money and they kind of tried to forget. That's based on the Chronicles of Prydain, which is like a Welsh Lord of the Rings, which is awesome, by this guy Lloyd Alexander. And during COVID, I read all the books, and because we were in lockdown, it's like 7 books. They're all really, really long, but the movie only focuses on the second book. So it was like, okay, well, what happens when the finale of the movie, the characters have to deal with the death of an important character, and how does this change their interactions and how would they feel? So that was an example of like going really micro, but digging really deep into the other universe. And Schaffer would get these long emails from me explaining all the lore of stuff. And I sent him this meme of the guy cracking his fingers open when he started to, he's like, when Lars sends me an email. So it was just like, how can we put some of ourselves into it? And each song on this record is like, what does it mean to confront the idea of that we're all mortal? And when you're a child, you feel like you live forever, right? But Disney is the first instance of seeing what death is like. Like Schaffer has a great lyric about Bambi's mother dying. I know that was like really hard, traumatizing, and like what it's like to confront death again as a middle-aged rapper. It's kind of the theme. So long answer.
I was going to say, though, like bouncing off what Tom's just said there, you're both very established songwriters and musicians in your own right. So how did you go about doing the songwriting process for this? Did you just both write songs and go, let's do these? This is the best of the bunch? Or was there a process to it?
It changed so much. I feel like we kind of learned, like, we've definitely over the many years of our relationship, I've done more collaborative tracks with Lars than I have anybody else. I've played more shows. I've done more touring with him than anybody else. Like, we know how to make things work together as a pair of collaborators. So this was just the first time doing it on a full length scale. And I feel like we just kind of figured it out as we went along. And yeah, sometimes somebody would have an idea and send it to the other one and say, like, I've written like a chorus for this. What do you think? How would you break up our parts for this? But they were all very different. They were all very kind of different ways than I'm used to collaborating with somebody. Usually if I'm bringing in a guest or I'm a guest on somebody else, that the guest gets a finished version of the song with like a space where your parts go. And we did not write this that way. This was a lot more of us talking through very long emails with lots of knuckle cracking gifs and figuring out how to do it. And I feel like I already knew that we worked well together, but I feel like this whole process really underscored that for me.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah.
Hey, it's like you guys hosting a really popular, wonderful podcast. Your energy is like, you have to trust each other, right?
But yeah, I get exactly what you're saying. But so far, you've released No Windows, No Doors about the Haunted Mansion. What's the feedback been like for that song so far?
I would say people like it because it kind of has like a Bauhaus, Susie and the Banshees, goth vibe, and people weren't expecting it. So it's very different from anything either of us have done. Yeah, people seem to like this song. What do you think, Schaffer? Or did anyone hate it?
I've only heard positive feedback about it, and I thought it was a great one to drop because of, again, our original concept started with this crazy idea of trying to write an album's worth of material about a theme park ride, and then got a little broader because we realized how difficult that was going to be. I thought that song was a great kind of entry point for the album to drop, and I feel like it got a very good response. And I love that the like 80s goth synth vibe of it. There's a lot of that's another thing that's fun about this album, is there are a lot of different musical styles all over it. Like these instrumentals could all have come from different albums, and I think that's great for keeping the mood and the tone changing pretty quickly from track to track.
Forgive me, I know you congratulated me on my research skills earlier, but I couldn't find a release date for this thing anywhere earlier on. So have I just been terrible and ruined my reputation, or has it not been announced yet?
We keep pushing it back because like we keep wanting to. The stuff you've heard is like that stuff's done, but the rest of the record we keep tweaking a little bit. I think December probably, but I don't know. We're gonna put out the singles maybe January. Either way, they'll be out in the next few months. So yeah, that's a good question though.
At the very least, you can expect some songs to start trickling out as singles this month. Maybe.
Yes.
Okay.
I love this.
I was worried that I might have said too much.
Just going back to when you mentioned about the every song sounds different. Like I found that with the tracks obviously that you sent over, it's just like they're all so different and so great. I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting that to come in there. Do you know what I mean? It was absolutely wonderful. Like it's just fresh every time. So it's not the same thing the whole way through. And I thought that was absolutely amazing. No Windows, No Doors was one of my favorites on there, and Rated G for Trauma was also one of my favorites on there as well. I couldn't stop laughing at the very beginning of just, you know, like 52 minutes in, Bambi's mum dies, and 30 minutes in, Mustafa dies, and that sort of thing. I was like, why am I laughing at this? This is hell. This is like trauma when we were kids. So what the fuck am I laughing at it for? It was great.
Yeah, because now you're an adult and mortality becomes so much more real. So it's fun to laugh at these things when this historic, traumatizing studio. It's to laugh at it now and laugh at like how these ideas of death were like these ideas of death were exposed to us at such a young age, so frequently and so early into the plot lines that now as an adult you're finding it funny. And I feel like you're doing a little bit of whistling past the cemetery because you know it's coming for you.
You say that. That was always made me laugh about Disney. It was like, let's get the traumatic shit done at the start. Like, Mom, like Nemo's mom and all of his brothers and sisters, they're fucking eaten within the first 2 seconds, but the rest, let's go swimming. Like,
Yeah.
so let's get that
Before
shit
the
out the way.
credits, before that you see the words Finding Nemo, he is orphaned brutally.
It's fucking brilliant. What songs are you guys personally like really excited for people to hear?
I really like the Black Cauldron song a lot, and the Weasel Cipher. We have the Roger Rabbit song that has all these different guest rappers. Each one's a different weasel going after a different famous Disney character. That's fun because, like in Nerdcore, there's the whole trope of like you get a bunch of rappers on a long song about some specific fandom. And I love Roger Rabbit, so I made a Roger Rabbit album for the 30th anniversary, and like I did another Roger Rabbit song with Schaffer on that record. So it's like that's the song I'm excited for everyone to hear because there's a whole new generation of the YouTube nerdcore rappers who are really talented and successful. And it's like the new generation. This guy, JT Music and Stupendium, and our friend MC Snacks he's a Canadian rapper. So that song I'm very excited for people to hear because it's really aggressive and tight. But what about you, Schaffer?
I think my favorite song, and it was not in that early batch that you got. It's a song called Pleasure Island, which takes place in the Pinocchio universe. And I don't know when the last time was you saw Pinocchio, but there's this little side quest story in the middle of it where the villains meet a worse villain who runs this operation where he kidnaps little boys off the streets of London, and then they take them to an island where they let them just like drink and fight and smash shit, smoke cigars, and get into all kinds of trouble. And then with no explanation, they turn into donkeys, and then they're sold off as livestock. This happens in the middle of Pinocchio. This has nothing to do with the puppet, has nothing to, well, I mean, the puppet's there, but it's like, it's just this kind of crazy, dark, like child trafficking allegory that happens in the middle of this 1940s animated feature. And so we have a song just about that. It's not about Pinocchio. It's not about Geppetto. It's just about the lore of this terrible island. And it's done in the style of like a pirate sea shanty. And I think that's my favorite song right now. That one and the song about Figment and Dreamfinder. I like all of them. I don't know.
I could not wait because even as a child, that scene, I'd just be like, "What the fuck is happening right now?"
They
like,
just turn
what?
into donkeys. You're a child, and you have to make sense of that. And keep moving.
Well, and there's that really sad moment. So it still like makes me feel emotional now. The kid who's almost a donkey who wants his mommy, and he's like, "I'm sorry, I want my mommy." They're like, "Too late." That's so sad because he's still a little boy, but oh god, so
the process
sad.
didn't take with him.
So sad. It's like, it's like a theme in a lot of the 19th century romantic literary monster fiction writers, and like Frankenstein, this idea of like, and Dracula, and Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. What's the line between our humanity and our monstrosity? And how does that line become blurred? And that line is a lot more permeable than most people would think. That's like a theme through this record, which is also the theme of like Moby Dick, the idea that like we're mortal, but we're also, what's scarier than us being mortal is that we are the demons that we fear more than we think we are. Ooh, scary.
Ooh. Oh, that was deep.
You nailed it.
I like that.
I'm gonna start crying. Thank you.
It's almost midnight over here. It's too late for something that deep. Fucking hell. Like, but no. But I'm genuinely from the samples you sent us earlier, which very, very grateful for you sending them over. I'm so excited to hear this record. I really cannot wait. Before we start wrapping this up, though, obviously, you guys are musicians on your own. Lars, you've just released a single yourself called Plastic Jedi, a song about Lego Star Wars, of all things. Like, what a great idea for a song that is.
Thank you.
And is there anything else you've got coming up on the way, or is it all focused on this project at the moment?
This is where all my energy is right now, but I'm doing an album about the Odyssey and the Iliad with my friend Cowboy Coder, who's like a punk rock folk musician guy from Texas who knows a lot about coding. So we're working on this, our Homer Odyssey record, which should probably come out in the spring. So that, but in the meantime, this is all I'm working on and excited about. What about you, Mark?
I back in 2018, I did a collaborative album with a producer friend of mine in Baltimore. His name is Vince Vandal, and we had a bunch of guests, and we worked together a lot. So we didn't want to just say we were doing an album that was Schaffer the Darklord, produced by Vince Vandal. So we gave ourselves a group name, and we released an album under the name The Department of Darkness. And that's the next project. We're working on a new Department of Darkness record, which means I'm going to shift from these traumatizing animated raps into some very angry political raps, because that seems to be mostly the theme of the Department of Darkness. So that's my next project, and I'm going to probably start working on that right away.
Would you ever tour this new record when it comes out? Because I reckon you could do all sorts of wonderful shit, like story-based stuff on stage, whilst also rapping the songs as well. So is there anything we could talk about there at all? Or no?
Well, I think we're trying to see if we could do some shows in the coming year. We've been talking about it. So yes, there will be a tour around this. Whether we'll get to England, I don't know. We'd love to get back there, but that would be cool. Schaffer did his first UK tour last year, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So people loved it. So yeah, we'll see. We'll keep you posted. You'll be the first to hear. But we are doing shows.
I really hope. I was introduced to you last week when you toured over here like 10, 12 years ago now, when you toured with Wheatus. That was when I was introduced to you. So to see you guys over here again will make me a very happy man. So yeah, please.
Thanks, Jamie. You're a sweet person.
I do appreciate that, sir. But before we let you get out of here, guys, any plugs, social medias, Patreons? I saw you're both on Patreon. Anywhere people can find you in the world, let us know.
If you just go to schafferthedarklord.com, my website is basically just a collection of links to all my social media, but and Patreon, etc. But I grind pretty hard on Patreon all the time, so I strongly recommend checking it out, as there is a ton of new content there every month.
Same. mclars.com, you'll get all the links, and and this record will be out early next year for those of you who haven't heard it, who aren't as lucky as Jamie and Tom. And shout out to our Kickstarter supporters who made this record possible. Thank you to them.
I did want to mention that, but I was quite conscious of time, but yeah, you got some incredible backing on Kickstarter, so tip of the hat to the guys that helped you on that as well.
Yeah, thank you, Kickstarter friends. We
love you. Couldn't have done it without you.
Incredible. Guys, best of luck to you. And again, thanks so much for coming on. It means the world, and I cannot wait to hear this record.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having us.
Great interview.
Not at all.
You guys are cool.
All the best. No, thank you so much. Right back at you, Lars. Right back at you.
We'll see you guys soon. Thanks, guys.
Take it easy. See you later.
See you later,
guys.
Bye. What a just incredible conversation. Like, this album is going to be incredible, and I cannot wait for it to come out. Like, as Mr. Stevens said, that it's a bit different before, and it's a bit different than we normally do. We're literally just talking about the record. But yeah, great conversation, and I hope we can get both these guys back on and hear their stories.
100%. It was great, and it was just so much fun. And like, I'd never heard of nerdcore before. It's my first taste, my first experience, and it was absolutely unbelievable. So, like you said, I'm going to also go back myself and check out more of it, because I thoroughly enjoyed. And it's a very niche, like, it's a very clever concept in my opinion as well, because I don't think anybody has actually delved into the darker side of Disney. So I think this is going to be a raging success, and I wish you guys all the best with the album when it does come out, and hopefully you'll tour it, and hopefully in the UK, and that'll be absolutely unbelievable. But Lars and Schaffer, thank you so much for taking the time out of your insanely busy schedules to sit and chat to us. It was absolutely amazing, and I thoroughly enjoyed. And more importantly, I hope you all enjoyed listening to it as much as we did recording it.